Hey, Sam, you come up with that intro line?
You didn't tell me that was today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Writer's Room with Sam and Jim. This is the show where we bring aspiring writers into our writer's room to help them work on and develop their story. And we're going to do that with Mary Nguyen this morning in just a little bit. But first, Sam wants to go off about something. Sam, what you got?
So, I always like to talk about things that get me excited, but now about TV. But now I want to talk about something that is driving me crazy about it.
Preach.
And I don't think this is preaching. This is a confession. But
same thing. I'm Catholic. They kind of go together.
Okay. Well, I am wondering. I think we might be working too hard. Okay, because I've been watching a show that I won't name, but it is terrible, and there's nothing good about this show in the sense that the characters are weak and there's no propulsion and it's not doing anything interesting or new. It's a retread. It's a soft show with the stakes are very low. And when I say low, I don't mean it's not the end of the world, so therefore it's low. No, it's not even that high to the characters, right? I mean, the character, it's just low. But I watched it because I was kind of curious, and then I watched it to the end of the pilot because I was hate watching it. And then I found myself watching it every night for one reason, because it's kind of like a warm bath. It's not dark. And, you know, after this year of Trump and COVID and the riots and George Floyd and all the stuff that's been happening, and I'm watching this terrible show.
Calgon, take me away.
Yeah, that I want to just ask the writers, what's happening here? Like, is this? Am I missing something, or is this what people? And here it is. It's a well-ranked show. It's doing well. It's coming back.
Do you think that's the intention of the show, is to be just a sort of a soft, meaningless balm to make you feel better?
I don't mind that it's soft, and I don't mind that it's meaningless. I just feel like the craft is really bad, and that there's a lot of missed opportunities, and I get angry at the writing and the production. But I'm watching it, and I am experiencing pleasurable feelings, and isn't that the point?
Yeah.
That it is working, and that and I'm angry at myself. It's almost I can't figure it out, man. I'm not hating it anymore. In fact, I'm kind of looking forward to next season, and I don't care what happens. In that, I'm not like, I wonder if this character will achieve that thing, because I don't know what these characters particularly want. I have no idea.
Wow.
But I watch it, and it's a mini vacation. And if I could just turn off my writer brain, I would be all in a way. And I can see people watching the show and putting it on and think, oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? And they turn it off, and the world is fine, and they go to bed, and they feel good.
Well, I think I'm going to say you're right. We are working too hard, and you need to jot down the name of the producer and the studio, and we're going to make some calls.
Except, you know what would happen? We come in. What are we going to do? Come in there and say, okay, first of all, in the first episode.
No, we're going to go pitch our own version of that same show.
Oh, okay. Look, man, I now I'm going to be Catholic, which is to say, it's a secret pleasure that I love, and I feel very guilty about it.
And that's a lot of good TV right there.
Damn it.
Okay, let's get into this week's show. Hi, Mary. Glad to have you on the show. This is Jim.
And this is Sam.
Hi,
Welcome.
guys. Oh, hi. Sorry. I totally got so excited and wanted to say hi to you guys.
I'm glad
so
you
fast.
did. This is great. This is all good. So I got to ask you, I asked this for everybody, but I'm going to ask you, when was the moment that you crushed your mother's dreams and told her you wanted to be a writer?
Okay. So,
Clearly a story.
So I for some reason, I really wanted to get into the film industry in any way, shape, or form. And I went to community college for business. And then midway through, I was like, I don't want to be a business person. I have no business in being in business. So I changed my major to film major. And then my mom was like, well, you can do whatever you want, but I'm not going to pay for college for you. So I
Wow, that was an Why did you tell her?
Yeah, right.
I know. I was just like, I just couldn't stand the fact of like keeping that sort of secret from my parents. I keep many secrets, but that one, for some reason, I just had to be loud and proud about it.
That's what happens when you're 18 and 19. You learn to sneak stuff better when you get older.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And your parents are immigrants. Is that right?
Yeah.
So here
they're refugees. So like it's way harder for them because they're like, we escaped a freaking like civil war.
Harder for them or harder for you, Mary?
No, it's harder for them. It's hard. Mary has guilt, but
yeah.
But her mom, I mean, they were refugees from
Vietnam.
What was their path?
So my mom, she went to like a refugee camp. It's like so funny because my mom, like, both my parents come from like huge families. Like, I think my mom's side is like 8 kids.
Yeah.
And then my dad's side is like around like 10.
Yeah.
And then on my mom's side, half of her siblings went to, I believe, Thailand. And they had like the worst time there.
Oh.
Like it was just miserable. And then my mom told me that she and her other siblings, the other half of the siblings, went to, I believe it was Malaysia, and they had the best time. It was like a beach party the whole time.
You know what's funny is that you started.
I want to be a refugee.
You're right. You started this whole thing. You know what's so funny?
Yeah, I know.
Half my family ended up in misery.
But the other half, it was awesome.
It was awesome. You're clearly a comedy writer. No question. It was so funny. They were starving and had terrible lives, and there's some humor there.
But the boat noodle recipe they came back with, oh my God.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And then like my dad, like he came straight here because he had like I think he was like 12 and he moved to like Indiana and he grew up like for 10 years of his life in Indiana.
That's hard. That was hard for Jim.
Like,
I did that for like 18 years. It was terrible.
But he was probably happy. I mean, he was free. He missed his family, but he came all this way. And he brought your mom, or did they meet here?
They met here.
Okay.
So my aunt got married to her ex-husband, and my mom was one of her maid of honor.
Mm-hmm.
And then her ex-husband, his best man was my dad. So that's how they met.
So they come all this way. They get to America. They end up in a pure American insane thing of ex-husbands and ex-wives at a wedding, and they meet, and then they have a child, and they raise her, and they love her, and then you betrayed them by deciding not to go into business, but being a writer.
It's so American.
So American. And and failing your parents is something. My mom, I think I've said this before, she still worries about me, so that'll never change.
Yeah.
Now, what have you been doing? You got jobs. You got jobs in this business somehow.
I got a job as a receptionist at Marvel Animation, which no longer exists, unfortunately. And then I moved my way up for like 5 years working as an operations coordinator, got really lucky and became a writer's PA on Hit Monkey, and then went on to another writer's PA position on Howard the Duck, which unfortunately got canceled.
Right.
And then pandemic happened, and I haven't had a job since, but I've been having fun while doing it.
And has your mother started to come around? Or not yet?
I like to kind of.
Uh-huh.
See, it's like such a roller coaster with her. Like, so a bunch of my family members used to work at Panasonic, and they were called the Asian Mafia there because like it was just like a bunch of my family members working there, and then a lot of them got laid off due to the pandemic. And then I think recently they were starting to hire people back, and my mom was like, hey, they're hiring people at Panasonic. Would you want to go? I was like, no, thank you. Like,
How long did you have to think about it?
The mafia.
Right. The post office is always hiring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah.
That's your family's version of the post office. It's tough. I mean, it's tough. And then I feel like this is a business where if you leave, you have failed, which is not true. If you're in, for other businesses, if you're in, you're a nurse and then you decide you want to go do something else, no one says you failed. They just say, oh, you made a change. But here, it's like they're out of the business. And when
I mean, because it feels like it takes so much strength or internal, resources to chase the dream that then if you like, I'm just going to put the dream on the shelf over here for a while, it's like, oh, it's all over.
Yeah. Well, even if it's you put it on the shelf forever and you're like, okay, I did that, and now I'm going to go back and work for Panasonic. There's that. Do you feel like you failed the rest of your life, or do you feel like, no, I tried it, it was cool, it didn't work out, fine. Now I have all this stuff. And any other business, it feels like, okay, you did. That's how it would work. But in this one, it's like, oh, you couldn't hack it, which is total bullshit because the odds are so low, and it's not fair. Anyway, obviously, I've just shined a light into my soul, which is why when my wife asked what Plan B was about 20 years ago or 15 years ago, I was like, there is no Plan B.
There can be no Plan B.
And that is the dumbest thing I ever said in my life. They're totally needed.
To be honest, I've been like this whole year just like, I cannot have a Plan B. If I have a Plan B, then like my mother has won. Like I cannot.
That's
where the Panasonic, because you're picking up your mom's dream instead of yours. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see if we can keep pushing you down the road of this dream. String you along as long as possible.
Yeah.
And then at the last minute, when you're about to break and you're just about to send that letter off to Panasonic, you get the call. That's the way we read
it. And you're in a mentorship program, right?
Yes. So I'm part of Start with 8 Hollywood. It's really cool, really great. It's meant for like women of color, connecting them into the industry with like every type of mentor in the entertainment industry. It's not just writers. Yeah, so like each mentee has 2 mentors or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's like really cool. Like both my mentors are incredible. I can email them at any time, and one of them like set up like a monthly like kind of town hall so that we can connect with other like industry people. It's really incredible.
All right, so now that we know exactly how you failed your mother, and we know you have hope now with mentees, and you've been unemployed, hopefully you have some side hustle that's paying the rent. And the question is, now let's talk about your show.
She repairs Panasonic electronics.
I assume your show idea is going to be a lighthearted comedy about refugees suffering in Thailand.
I wish. Now that I think about it, I should write that. But actually, my idea is, I like mentioned it before, but like this one is like definitely just like for a sample because it's like a huge parody, and I don't think it could ever be made unless Jeff Bezos has like a sense of humor. But it's called King of Mars. So the logline I have for it is, in the not-so-distant future where Mars has been occupied by Amazon employees, a reluctant and disgruntled assistant is forced to find a suitable leader for the new colony after her boss, Jeff Bezos, unexpectedly dies.
Oh. This doesn't seem far-fetched to me at all. I assume Mars will be colonized by Amazon or somebody like that, or Tesla, right?
I think Elon Musk is like really shooting for it.
Well, they both have space programs. I mean, this is right.
Does she have to deliver a new leader within like 24 hours because it's Prime?
No, I'm not giving you that one. So
I'm taking
Mary, you're too easy. So this is obviously is this a half-hour comedy? Is that where we're?
Yeah,
I mean,
half
obviously.
hour.
Right. All right. First of all, I completely think you should write it, and I assume you are, as Amazon, Jeff Bezos, no hedging on it, just full on. It's Amazon. Because I think first of all, you're 100% right. If I read that script, if I got that on the pile, I would be elated.
Yeah,
that would be fun to read.
You're going to have to go deep, though, and ring every Amazon / Jeff Bezos bell you can possibly ring for the reader.
To a point. Here's the thing.
Because it goes in the Amazon slush pile, too.
Well, no. So Jim
they'll probably laugh hardest, though. The executives read that. They just can't admit it.
No, everyone will laugh. And it'll be good. And I think Amazon people would like it. I don't know. I have worked for Amazon people, but I certainly can't speak for them, or myself apparently. But what you have to be careful about, and this is where Jim's like, you got to wring everything out of it, and he's right. But we have an expression that we use, which is one of our little in jokes, called hazelnut cappuccino, right? Which means nothing to anybody but us because we have known each other for so long. But the second script we ever wrote
for money
was a takeoff on a movie called A Ring of Bright Water, which is, and I kid you not, is it a 60s movie? 70s?
I think 60s, 70s. It was iconic in Britain.
Yeah, it was an important movie in Britain in some way, And it's about a man that moves to a small town in Wales or Scotland or something, and he meets an otter.
And befriends this otter.
And we wrote this damn thing for $3,000. And this is going way back, right? This is like 18 years ago. And we wrote it, and Jim and I have a tendency sometimes to, when we come up with a funny, something that makes us laugh or something, and maybe laugh out loud, but also could be just cool, we will beat the living hell out of it. And we will use it over and over. And we had this gag with the hazelnut cappuccino.
I kept drinking hazelnut cappuccinos.
Yeah, and it made us laugh. And then when we did a hazelnut cappuccino count in the script, it was.
There's like 19 or something. It's like, no, this isn't funny anymore.
So when we're writing now, obviously people who have worked together a long time have shorthand, and our shorthand is, dude, I think we're hazelnut cappuccinoing that thing. Whatever it is. It might actually be a deep emotional question, or it might be a plot device, or it could be anything, but we've overdone it. So the Amazon thing of how much you're going to do and how much is too much, I don't know, but that's going to be the yin and the yang. Well, the too much, that's going to be the continuum that you're going to have to find a space on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love this idea. Don't you, Jim?
Yeah, I do. And I think there's a lot of room for, as you say, a parody. And it's where the threat of hazelnut cappuccino comes in, while at the same time, whatever expectations, well, why don't you tell us about it a little bit? Like, what are, because it's all about the expectations people have of what would a Mars or a world run by Amazon look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I feel like it should be like in this kind of dome-esque thing. They haven't really gotten the whole atmosphere of the planet correct yet.
Right.
And so, like, it's this colony completely full of, like, Amazon employees. And the main character is, like, his assistant, who is kind of like this millennial with, like, a history degree. She didn't think that, like, this job at Amazon was going to last that long. But here she is, like, on Mars, being the right-hand woman of Jeff Bezos for 5 years. She's the type, I just picture her as like this type where it's like she's above it all type, but deep down inside she cares a lot.
Okay.
Like, even though she like...
What's her name?
Daisy.
Daisy? Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going on Daisy. So we have Daisy, and she's the assistant to Jeff Bezos on Mars, and, she's stuck in this job.
And now she's stuck in this kind of... Because she's the only one who's, like, witnessed Jeff Bezos' death, and she knows as a history major... Like, especially because she references the assassination of Caesar. Because, like, after the assassination of Caesar, there's, like, this huge, like, civil war that happens. And, like, it's just imagine, like, Amazon employees going into civil war. It's just, like, super weird and, like a weird image for me. So I kind of established in in my little outline for it, that there's going to be like a small council. So it's just her, this other guy named Griffin, who's from PR. And he's like this total like douchebag, cocky dude. And like, I've been rewatching New Girl. So I love Schmidt so much. And like, I just love that character. And I feel like this is like a Schmidt-esque dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third person part of the council is Kay, a non-binary Gen Z intern who's kind of full of hope and whimsy. And then like they come up with like a list of candidates, and I have 4 candidates so far.
Well, hold on. Let me slow you down for just a sec. A lot of information. So first of all, I just want to laud you on stealing a character you love from another show. Right? That to me is a great choice sometimes.
Yep.
Because the character, you think you're stealing it, but in fact you're just starting with that type, and you're going to change it to the situation, and it's going to evolve. And
by the time you're
else,
done writing it, no one would ever know.
And I think so. There's not only nothing wrong with it, but I think it's great shorthand for yourself. It's like a shortcut, I should say. And then you get to that, and then you adapt it, and I think that's great. The big thing is the tone of the show. That's the thing I'm going to ask you about next before we get into the other stuff, because this could be, is it a laugh out loud? New Girl it's a blend. I haven't watched it in a few years, but it's a blend between heightened and roommates in an apartment building. And what's the tone? I mean, did you watch Upload?
I haven't watched Upload, but I just watched this new HBO show, Made for Love. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that.
It's very similar to like the tone of like what I was going for King of Mars, where it's like absurd but realistic at times. So Made for Love is kind of like a parody of Google, in which they insert this chip between two.
Right. Yes, I saw the trailer for that, but that's a thriller. There's thriller elements. At least the trailer had them. Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you want that? Do you want those too?
I think so.
Okay.
I think like slight thriller elements, because it is like kind of like a cat and mouse sort of, because she really wants to keep this a secret because it would melt down the whole like colonization like process.
So
they found out.
Right. So is that kind of the premise? Is they have to maintain the illusion that he's alive?
Yeah, just until they can find like a suitable leader.
Which is presumably like 100 episodes down the road.
I think in the pilot, I just imagine it just keeps on coming out, like the information keeps on leaking, and like more and more people are finding out until like it descends into chaos near the end.
Near the end of what?
End of the pilot, and
that's
Elon Musk shows up.
Mary, that Jim and I are looking at each other. I think that might be too fast. You only got
too fast.
Yeah, you only got, in my opinion, and I think Jim's, but you only got 30 pages or whatever to work with. And here's the thing: you really want to end on a question, right, for the pilot. And the question is, how are they going to be able to maintain this for a few seasons or the whole season or whatever it is? And it's not unlike Wizard of Oz, right? This is a Wizard of Oz kind of show. It's totally, but just in terms of, we don't know what the wizard looks like, and everything works just fine with the wizard never revealing himself, right?
Yes.
Right, and she's the assistant, so she's able to control things in a certain way, which is why she's brought into this. Right, and that is enough for me,
and that gives you tension, right? Because you're in the constant fear of this being exposed,
right?
And that that puts a secret behind the whole thing, and adds a comic element of having to, oh no, he's just in the other room, like all that kind of stuff.
Right. The non-shitty version of that.
Right. Yeah. And but it lets you live in whatever the tone is, whatever the sense of community is, whatever the dynamics among your little council and whoever else in the show is that you're doing in your 35 pages, whatever you have for your pilot. Okay. You get to actually create something that works and is on its feet for that whole time, rather than you're just tearing things apart and no one knows what the show actually is going to look like in episode 2, what the chemistry is going to be, what the story engines are going to be, all that kind of stuff.
This is absolutely great, because like for some reason in my mind, for me, they're used as like samples and stuff, and so like I don't really think beyond that.
Yes, but yeah, you shouldn't.
Yeah, so I want to throw everything, including the sink, at like a pilot.
The key things you want out of your pilot, right? You want to show people what you can do as a writer, and you want to establish a world that feels interesting and new and unique, and it's in your voice, like all that kind of stuff, which you've got the pieces of here, right? Definitely the premise could be very interesting, and then you want to show that you can sort of figure out the math of, if these are your 3 people on your council, it feels like they're sort of your core group, that what the emotional math of that triangle is, so they each represent something sort of interesting and unique that the audience can kind of identify with on one hand and maybe find absurd at another level.
Yeah.
And how they bang off of each other as they're agreeing or disagreeing about what they should do, because Jeff is dead, and they need to hide that and find a new king at the same time.
Yeah,
and it should be very little, because there aren't a lot of steps to it. Right, we don't need a lot of hijinks and all of that. It'll feel like plot, and the last thing that anybody who's reading that, who can hire you, wants to see is just a bunch of plot, obviously. And you're making this a half hour, so there's limited amount. I don't know how many pages a half hour is these days, because it's really 30 minutes. It's not 22. So you can write a 30, how many pages that is. That's not a lot of real estate to have a lot of stuff happening.
And to get emotionally invested in the characters and the situation, which is the number one thing.
And in fact, yesterday, Jim and I were working on this a show that we're both really passionate about, Jim especially, and we're trying to talk about, should we spec it? Should we just write it for the fun of it? Should we put together a pitch? And in the course of an hour, we had figured out the pilot. Now, I just want to say we've been working on and off in the kind of the background on this for years. And it's been a thing that we just talk about periodically. It
simmers on the back burner, and we talk about it once in a while.
So we have characters, we have a lot of stuff. But I laid out the pilot story for him after he'd been thinking about it for a long time, and it was a quarter of what he had talked about. And as soon as he heard it, he's like, yeah, that's enough. Now, it may not be, but our thing is always shoot for less story in the pilot, because
less plot in the pilot.
Yeah. Well, and what he's saying is just more character, because those character choices are why we're going to come back. And when we tell people, in the writer's room, this happens all the time. If any writer who's been in a writer's room is listening to this, they'll all be nodding their head at this moment. By the way, nobody is listening to the show, we know. But who's at
least not at this moment.
Yeah, right, not because it's not live. But what they do is you end up moving stuff. We call it moving it to the left, because you lay out your episodes, or even you lay out one episode, and there's some not exciting stuff. So you start stealing exciting stuff from episodes that are coming up, or things in an act that are coming up. Let's move that cool thing in Act 4 down to Act 1, which screws you up, but then you're like, oh, it's so much better there. And now we have to come up with more stuff.
And the rule is save nothing, right? Because you can always come up with more story if the story you have works.
But in this case, that might screw you too, because then you might be stuffing in every cool idea you have.
You end up with a list of cool ideas rather than emotionally resonant ideas. And for this kind of thing, especially for your main character, Daisy, preferably, for as many of these characters as makes sense in your story, but specifically for Daisy, you want to put her in an emotional dilemma in the course of the pilot with like, is she going to reveal he's dead? What's the cost to her if she does that? There's something very hard for her emotionally to tackle that she has to make a choice about in the course of the pilot.
So let me ask you, what's driving her?
What's driving her? For her, she thinks that she knows what's best for the colony, and it's like that idea of like, should the government reveal every secret, and like with the citizens like panic if they know everything, or like it's almost like this whole like, this is a new colony, like fresh colony on a new planet. She doesn't want to rock the boat too much, especially since these are people who have lived with a leader that has like kind of guided this whole huge conglomerate for so long. And so like for her, she is just that type where she's like, I have to keep this a secret even if it kills me, and keep the ship going, and it's best for the citizens, sort of.
So let me tell you first why that's a terrible idea. And then let me tell you how it's actually a really good idea, right? Because I've made that same mistake. The first one is the nobility that you're talking about. That's an intellectual idea. Somebody fighting for justice and all of that. That's fine, but that's not a character move yet, right? You're not going to derive a lot of story out of that. Right, you're going to derive a lot of plot, but it won't emotionally resonate until, and here's why it's a good thing that you've gotten into that now, because now I can ask just one simple question, which is, why does she give a shit? Why is it important to her that this all work? Because she could get on a plane or a ship or whatever, go back to Earth. Oh, Earth is dead. Right, this is the new planet. But you know what I'm saying? Why is it important to her? What are her personal stakes in that? And by the way, that's in every movie that's any good that has a noble character. They have some very basic skin in that game. So what is it for her?
Her skin in the game, if you will. I think it is that these are people that, even if she hates the job, it's still people that she loves being around, and she cares for them.
Who in particular?
I think because her favorite coworker is Kenny, who is the
Kenny?
Yes, Kenny. He's like this 4-year-old former warehouse foreman. He like successfully unionizes their warehouse workers. He's like very intellectual, and like she just loves him and like cares for him.
Why?
Kind of.
Not because he's a successful warehouse foreman. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm not sure that I have ever had a friend, man or woman, say, I met this guy.
He's a successful warehouse foreman.
He is he is so good at his job. Every time he gets on the phone and is a lawyer, I get hot. I mean, it's just not. It's not it. It's not it.
Yes, yeah. I think he's like just a father figure to her, and like a mentor, like somebody who goes by his morals and sticks to it, whereas she doesn't stick to her morals. Kind of, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So she's a liar. Is she a liar?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, Mary,
that's great.
Mary. She's a liar, and she's pretending that Jeff Bezos is alive, but the man that she loves is a truth teller.
So she has gotten where she is. She lives in a world that she sustains and fakes her way through by lying a lot. Is that the character?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mary.
That's great. That's
so
a sitcom
great.
character or a comedic character.
A comedic character, but also you could do that in a drama for that matter. I mean,
right.
depending on the twist.
It's the resonance. Why is she lying? What is the weak spot that she's trying to compensate
for?
for?
And that's the next question. See, and so that's why we're pushing on you, Mary. I hope we're not pushing too hard.
Yeah.
But because I know we've just cost you half of your pilot now, but that's okay.
No,
It was 72. It was 72 pages before, and by the end of it, they'd conquered Venus. Okay, so Mary is a liar. Okay, why is she a liar?
She's a liar because in the core of her core, she does not like herself.
She's insecure.
Yes, she's insecure. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll keep pushing it. And if you don't know, you don't know. It's all good because then we'll all riff on it. But why is she insecure? What about her is insecure? Like what got her there, or in what way is she? All that. What can we drill out of that?
In high school, she was like the type that didn't have a lot of friends, and so. But when she started lying about herself, she started getting more and more friends through that.
So she's oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So she's a fabulist.
Yes.
I love her more and more. So we just went from, in 5 minutes, from this character is a noble character to this character is a liar, insecure, lying fabulist, right? And I knew a girl in high school that it was early high school, so it was like, freshman year or something, that made up that she literally, this is absolutely true, she made up the fact that she had met a prince on a family trip, which you would think is insane, except I went to a private school in Manhattan. I wasn't rich, but there definitely were wealthy people there, and they did go on some fabulous trips.
It wasn't quite as crazy as it might otherwise
Not
sound.
quite as crazy, pre-internet, and it was, you know what I mean?
Was he a Nigerian prince?
Like I said, pre-internet, and then it came out that it was not true. I was not actually I didn't give a shit about any of this, but I heard about it, and she was making stuff up probably because she was insecure. So even though that is not the most original story in the history of the world, you already have the most original. It's Amazon on Mars.
Right.
So now we just have to keep it into universal, just ground it.
Right.
With the characters.
So it feels like, obviously, in the course of this pilot, there is some lie that sustains her in this world that she is going to have to reveal the truth about in order to keep all the things together. And whatever her noble thoughts are about what's good for the community and why things have to happen a certain way, it feels like that's the kind of conflict you're looking for, where in order to she has the choice between sustaining the lie that is helping her keep her identity and doing the thing she thinks is best for this community that is now suddenly in danger because the king is dead. Something like that.
Did that make sense to you, Mary?
Yeah, it definitely. This actually because I wasn't connecting very well with Daisy, because I really love when the main character is extremely flawed,
right?
And then I was trying to balance it, because again, this is Amazon on Mars, so there's a lot of plates being spun, and so I wasn't connecting with the character. But now that we kind of labeled her as a liar, an insecure liar, I just love that even more.
Right.
And I definitely get what the direction now.
So what Jim was pitching is basically, because we want to demonstrate different things that happen. So the rough way, and I'm just pitching it back to you. I just want to hear what your reaction is to it. We get a little bit of life on Mars in Amazon land, and we get to see that. We have to establish that reality, because you're world building here, which is really cool, by the way. World building is really hard.
It's really hard. And it's hard to do in the if you're going to kill the king, right? You need to establish the status quo, what the world is in a few pages off the top in a
Right.
half-hour show before you're going to shake it up by changing what's going on.
Right, which is why I would actually recommend you. It's on Amazon, ironically. Go watch Upload. I think it's called Upload.
Yeah, Upload.
And I really liked it. I mean, that was some top writers, Greg Daniels and
yes.
right. And so it's a I watched the whole thing. I thought it was really well done. And it also was world building. It built the world on Earth as it exists now. A lot of thinking has to go. This is a future slightly in the future, and then the world of the Upload, which is heaven. Their manufactured digital heaven, and there are so many decisions that have to be made in that. And that's where Jim was saying, how does the fact that it's all controlled by Amazon control that or could define that? That's a lot of heavy lifting. And yet you can't clutter the whole thing because it's not just about that.
It's got to come down to like 2 or 3 things that you actually see that tell you like, oh, so this is how it works.
Right.
Oh, it's like that. Oh, they're doing this.
And then you can still have a new thing in each scene as long as nobody comments on it and makes a big deal out of it. It's just you're building the world as you go. This is really hard, and I wish you the best of luck.
And the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, oh, because I have a friend who works at Amazon, and I've been trying to ask him for details of like, what do they call like cafeterias? And like, they must have like names for everything, like Amazonian names, you know?
Right. Yeah, they probably do, but you don't have to use them, of course. You can make them up, but because this is in the future, and we're in Mars, and things have happened in the intervening time. But like Earth blew up, but there's all sorts of that's part of it. That's just the world building. Now to get to Mary, Daisy. Sorry, we need
Daisy.
to. Although, is it
Mary? Everyone will be asking, is it you or is the character?
I mean, it's right about this time when Jim and I are writing a world building show, which we've done, where I think I know a lot. Could we just? It's about a doctor in a small town. and he knows how to
What if we bring the aliens to him instead of he goes to space? Wouldn't that be easier?
I'm like, no aliens, because then we have to spend 3 days defining the aliens.
Yeah, what is that? What are they looking
okay.
at? Do they really breathe oxygen too?
Yeah. So then we need to establish Mary, and we'll understand what something that really worries her. For example, I can't pitch that because it's about breasts, but it's But I was going to say, I'll pitch it, but that she was wearing
appearance concern.
It's appearance concern. Like she's wearing falsies was my thing, but it could be she's afraid to reveal her true self, and this is part of her lie.
It's protective coloration. Yeah. She's got a shell,
and that's my shitty version, by the way. This is a much better one, and there's a lot of better ones. And then Jim's thing is that, and then Jeff dies. And that's the big inciting thing. That's the thing that happens at the end of Act 1. And that's huge. And now I understand how important it is. Maybe she was about to leave the job. I mean, and then all this comes, and we understand that she wants out, that she's insecure, that she lies. We know all about this, and that's why she's perfect for this job, because she's so good at it. Not because she was coincidentally and fortunate enough to be Jeff's assistant, which is situational, but because she's the best liar around, and she's so good at it, which I would argue some number of executive assistants probably have to be pretty good liars in some ways.
Right. But it feels like I'm sorry.
I was just going to get to the point where, and then to go to Jim's pitch earlier, in order to to protect the biggest lie, which is that Jeff is dead, she has to reveal herself, this lie about herself, which my bad version was falsies, like in a comedic way. And she does it. And then because everyone knew she was lying. They know she's lying. And the only way that she can deflect them from the important lie is to reveal that she was lying about this other thing, which hurts her even more, because they're going to find out that she whatever. But she reveals that instead and protects.
For the common good.
And now we see the show.
And I would pitch in your dynamic of this triumvirate, these three people who are sort of in charge of making the world work. One version of it is that she reveals the truth of herself to one of them.
Right, the one that she wants.
The one that she wants, which
the
is maybe pay.
construction warehouse foreman.
Right, who's the moral center, which is the person you tell the truth to.
Right, Kenny.
who can tell her that, well, everybody already knows that about you anyway, right? But the yeah, well, that's what you were. I was pitching that back at you. That's what you just said. Anyway,
no, I didn't go that far.
You were saying everybody knows.
No. Everybody knows that she's telling a lie, but they don't know what it is.
Oh, okay, all right.
They're starting to get
right.
onto Jeff, and she uses this other truth to deflect from Jeff.
Right. Yeah. I get it. But here's what I was going to say is, in this kind of a show, you need the person who is probably your Schmidt analog character, who's always an inch away from getting to the truth, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever saw Bewitched. There was the neighbor who always suspected there was something going on crazy in that household with the witch in it that they had to hide from, right? You need the person who's always on the brink of finding out that Bezos is really dead, right?
You could.
It feels like something
That's one way to get the pressure.
That's one way.
The journalist or the whatever, whoever is approved. But who would want to reveal that?
Well, hold on. Let me just run, because I'm trying to make an emotional point here, which is you want someone who is a threat in that way. And if she's revealing the truth to someone who becomes her ally to help her hide the secret, and who is saying, no, what's most important now is that you stay and pretend to be king or fill this role, because what you want is actually good. Because you're actually this good person who wants good things for the community inside. You're the person who needs to make this choice, because if this comes out, other things are going to happen. It's going to be a revolution. This other person who is the heir apparent is going to take over, who's a total dick, whatever that is, right? So they're helping her sustain the illusion. Something like that, where like by revealing herself, she's done a good thing, but now she's caught in the system where she's going to be continually having to make up new lies and do this thing to help everyone and do a good thing.
That's one version.
That's one version.
To
that's
me,
the good version.
That's a little complicated for me, but
that's very simple.
Yeah.
It's classic. Well, that's why I'm pitching it, because it's
it is a classic,
tried and true kind of dynamic.
What do you think, Mary? Are you do you think that's good, or do you agree with me?
Or are you a right-thinking human being? I mean, you get your choice.
I mean, I like that idea.
Oh, she doesn't like it.
She doesn't like it. She's on your side. Right? I'm really only pitching that to pitch, like, you need a shape like that. Like,
I feel like it's cluttered. That's the thing I can't.
It's not cluttered. Well, all I'm saying is, in this version of a story, you have a main character who has an emotional dilemma they face. They make a choice. That is a repercussion. And in setting up the ongoing dynamics of the show, you want some threat to her world it's going to come unglued, and a reason why she's sustaining it, and ideally an ally who is the friend she can always talk to even while she's spinning lies. And what I was pitching gives me those two pieces. There's some sort of adversary out there, and there's some ally she can talk to, because your protagonist always needs someone they can talk to.
Definitely.
What do you think, Mary? And then I have a pitch too. But what do you think?
I do like those elements that, like, she constantly has to tug out these lies to keep this, like, illusion up. And I do like that there is, like, somebody who's, like, always close to, like, finding out, but something gets in their way, kind of thing. But yeah, like, let me hear the other pitch as well.
Well, mine is a little simpler, and maybe
you're going to be an executive one day. You do that. Well, let me hear the other pitch.
it did come very naturally.
It did. It came right out. Yeah, your mom would be proud.
She's a showrunner for sure. So. No, the idea that, for me, it's simple. The elements that Jim's talking about, I don't think are wrong. The ending is really, and the reason I'm talking about the ending here so much is, once I kind of have a shape to that, then I can work backwards from that. But we all do it. We approach it differently, because the minute Jim pitches it, I'm like, that's good. Let's get back to the beginning, and get to that. And then I'm like, oh no, I want a better. Yeah. So you go back and forth. What I'm saying here is, she in revealing the lie, but the smaller lie, the more important lie to her, that she is not who she appears to be in some way, that costs her the relationship with the 40-year-old. Like, she has her first date with the warehouse guy, the foreman, that she's really wanted, and then she gets it, and things are looking great.
So she's having a date with the father figure. Interesting.
Well, that was the romantic intent, that she had a romantic thing, didn't she?
No, it was the father figure.
No. I changed it. He's actually more of a father figure. But.
Oh, I went both ways. I don't know what that says about me. But here it is. I do think that a love interest helps. But if that guy, whoever the love interest is, it ends up, and you're building that throughout the episode, And then she finally gets that date with him, and she's all excited, and she has to choose, and she loses. That's a real loss, and that's a loss that happens in the episode, that she takes a step back with him, but she saves the other thing. And now going forward, it's not, is she going to save the Earth or
is she going to save Mars?
Is she going to save Mars?
The planet.
The planet. Is she going to manage to get a relationship with that guy? And I know how that sounds. I know that sounds a little cheap and a little basic, but I have to say, when I watch television, and I love television, the will they or won't they thing works on me 100% of the time. And I swear to God, the fact that Haven ran 78 episodes was because we nailed that thing, and we had a love triangle, and I loved writing it, and I love watching it on shows, and to me, it's just, it's great. And in this case, it's a way to get to her heart, because insecurity, it's like she's not insecure about lying to shore up the entirety of this planet. She's insecure about a smaller thing. Right. Now, it would be a fair criticism to say, oh, she's insecure about a man. Is that what it is, Ernst? It's all about women, and she's insecure about. That's fair, and there's probably other ways to do it. But I love the sacrifice that she has to make. Right?
Yeah, like a personal, like self-validating sacrifice. Because we already established that she's kind of slightly terrible. So, like, why not have like slightly terrible motives too?
Right. Well, the funny thing is, she did this incredibly noble thing, and nobody can know.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Maybe
or there's only one person.
Or maybe one person or two, but the rest of...
And it's not the person she wants to know.
Right.
Yes.
And this is all simplistic. And I just want to say, in Upload, the thing I liked about it, I think I was so deft, was there was so much to understand. But the drive was just a man and a woman in love, and then he ends up getting killed right away in the very first episode and gets uploaded. And then the question is, will she wait for him? And that is because they can see each other from the uploaded place, but they can't be together. And that's all it was. And then we find out, oh, why did he die? Is there some secret about that? And something happened there. But it was that simple.
Right.
And if you said it out loud, it would be very, I don't know, plain. But it's actually about love and the limits of love. And it was beautiful. And I thought they really did a beautiful job.
Yeah, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, and then just rip off everything from that.
It is like one of the big things, right? Pilots, you have to do so many things in a pilot, and in what you're choosing, the kind of world building you're choosing, where it's actually we're on a different world, we're in the future, it's sci-fi, and yet it's a parody of things we know. Like, you've got a lot of heavy lifting to do to make that work right. But whatever version of what we're talking about here you land on, just remember that it's that emotional core is the main thing. Because in any scene, in any script, it all ultimately comes down to the emotion you're selling. And for someone reading your script, like, if you successfully sell the emotions and you make me engage with the characters and believe in their struggle and their pain and the choices they make, then it doesn't really, all the details are just details at that point.
Well, they're gravy in a good way.
Yeah.
I think this is a really cool show.
Yeah.
And more importantly to you, I think this is a really cool sample.
Yeah.
Because unlike when we build a world, you have Amazon. So you already know. You do. Right. You have Amazon.
You have buy-in.
Well, you can shortcut. Right. You can shorthand, rather, all this stuff. You can be like, oh, yeah, they're on the Amazon elevator. And that looks this way, and they order something, and the guy walks in through the room 2 minutes later because Amazon Prime is now at 2 minutes. I mean, all these little things.
Everyone gets their lunch delivered from the cafeteria, but they need a box cutter because they have to cut the tape to open the box with their lunch.
That's the pity laugh, I hope, Mary, because I'm hoping you have more self-respect.
I had to cut open a couple Amazon boxes this morning, so I was thinking about it.
So the point is. If I sat down to read that, I would be laughing on page 1 or smiling.
Hopefully,
I would think, oh, this is hilarious. This is very interesting. Right. And then if we hooked into the character, and then I understood what she was doing, and I'm already there.
Right? Is there an AI called Alexa that controls the whole colony? Right?
Yes, of course.
Of course,
Alexa's definitely like a
character. Absolutely. Well, and actually, what her character is could be very interesting. Because she could have a character by then. But anyway, I think this writes itself. I think it'll be done by the end of the day.
Could be an android named Alexa that is part of the cast.
Interesting. That's right.
In the future,
could be. Yeah.
Alexa Prime.
All right. What do you think? How much have we messed you up, Mary?
No, this is fantastic. Like, I just needed, like, because I was feeling overwhelmed because of, like, A, the world building, and then B, like, all these characters and, like, these other elements that I had to, but, like, you guys really, like, boiled it down to, like, the meat and potatoes that I really need for this pilot. But yeah, like, this is fantastic.
And it's totally clear that you are always going to have a lot of good ideas.
Yes.
Oh,
so,
and it's totally clear that my pitches are better than Sam's.
and the thing is, and it's hard to kill them, but we got to kill those babies.
Yeah.
Right. If it's not serving, if it's not serving,
so painful.
Right. If it's not serving Daisy, it's not serving anyone. Right.
Yeah.
It's not serving the show. It's been great talking to you.
Yes.
It's a great way to start our day. Thank you, Mary. This is awesome, and you're still failing your mother, but you did not fail writing today. That was beautiful.
Woo! I had so much fun today. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks for being here.
And that's all we've got for you this week. Our producer, J.R. Zamora-Thal, is working the mixing board.
Our logo was designed by Julien Debar-Monclair, and our music was provided by Buddha-Rays out of Austin, Texas.
If you want to get in touch, we are at The Sam and Jim on Instagram and Twitter. And you can find us on Facebook and YouTube as The Writers' Room with Sam and Jim.
And if you like hanging out in the room with us, give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And tell a friend, would you, so we can get JR paid. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.